Alright guys, welcome to another episode of Initial DIY Mods. Today what we're going to work on is the boost gauge that broke in the last episode. I don't know if you guys saw it, but basically the light inside the gauge stopped working. So instead of buying a new gauge, we are going to fix that one for $10 and get it running again so we can see our boost during the day and at night. Let's get to it.
Alright, so this is something that I made a little bit custom here. So basically what I did, I took apart the glow shift gauge. Now I got an old one that was refurbished. However, the main issue was that the lighting module didn't work properly, and because I was living overseas for a year, the warranty expired, and even though I didn't use it, they wouldn't do anything. Now they did agree to help me out and do a discount on a second product, which I still might use for an oil pressure gauge or something, or oil temperature gauge. But I decided to do this for the boost gauge, something a little bit different. So this boost gauge was $35 on eBay, like I said, refurbished. So what I did was I took apart the pod, and the way that comes apart is it's essentially crimped on. So you have to carefully peel off all the crimping, at least in a way that you can get it back on later, so don't destroy it. And then everything's going to come apart. You're going to want to take off the nut that threads on the back of the gauge. Be careful not to mess up the brass piece, because that is essentially your spring and what's going to hold everything in place, so your calibration. So if you mess that up, then your PSI is going to read off, in which case you need a new gauge at that point, so just stop. So going over what I did, basically there's these two screws here in the center. So when you pull those apart, this plastic white piece and this brass piece will separate, and you can remove this piece from between them. This is, once again, this is your whole circuit, and that's your button to change the lights. So my lights just turned on and then turned off, and they wouldn't come back on. So get rid of that. So what I did was I went to Walmart and I picked up one of these flexible, cuttable LED strips, which I think was about $14. And it comes with double-sided tape, but I actually had some super glue, so that's what I used for most of this. And I didn't need both of these, but I left it all hooked up so you can see what it looks like. So I got a little switch down here, so that's just white LEDs. Now, part of the reason that I chose these LEDs is they actually shine to one side and up. So basically they don't shine right, but they shine left, which allows me to mount it this way on the inside of the canister, and then that's going to shine up onto the back of the gauge. So that's why I chose these ones, even though they were a little bit more expensive than just the bulbs. I found they work a little bit better. So you can see if this is the gauge face, right? Start the car. That's all I need. Boom. White light. So just going to go through the assembly here. Pretty basic. So we've got our lights, which faces outward. What we're going to do first, we're going to go ahead and put our gauge face back on. We're going to orient it so that the big heavy weight, essentially the bottom part where everything comes out, that's going to be the bottom of our gauge. It all lines up. And then once again, that's how the gauge is going to light up. So it's going to be a little bit bright, but I think when we put our tinted face on it, it's going to be good, pretty good to see in the day, and definitely easily seen at night. And of course this last part, kind of the trickiest as far as you just got to get it lined up. Now remember, your needle weighs a little bit, so when it's on, it might settle a little bit, so just make sure to put it on lightly. There we go. So that should be perfect, maybe a little bit. Now once again, it's not like this is going to be used for data logging or anything. It's just going to be a good reference gauge for me, so I have something while I'm driving that I can see pretty easily. So it should click in place, and there's our vacuum, and of course, there's our boost. So we are good there. Now the last thing, I'm going to thread it through the same hole that they used for their electrical wires. And of course now there's only two, because there's no switched, unswitched, night, and ground. Now we just have our power and our ground. You want to make sure you wire this so that it's not going through or bumping into anything. Also, you can see I put little bits of super glue to keep the coil from sliding out. The original glue adhesive that was in there wasn't very good. Make sure to get your wire out of the way. Alright, so we got it in, it's sitting a little crooked, so just going to jiggle it around until it sits flush. Screw this on. I don't know what it is. I think it's a 14 millimeter. Right now I'm just going to finger tighten it, and that's pretty much good. I mean, if anything, you might want to just snug it down with your fingers and then give it an 1/8 turn, and that's probably all you really need. And then now we're going to go ahead and put our piece back on here. So our bezel, of course our plastic bezel fits nicely. I'm going to line up the hole in the bottom right so that it to just roll that edge. Now, of course, you can do this with any color LED. And if there's a certain color you like, of course, you can, as long as you can find it, you can pick it and do that yourself. The only thing to really keep in mind would be if you have other glow shift gauges, that you're probably going to want to get an LED that matches those other gauges. Because at least, like, for example, this was a 7-color, the black lens 7-color gauge. Of course, it does not have 7 colors anymore. And I don't think white was one of their colors anyway. I think it was like just the primary colors. Or not primary colors, but the 7 rainbow colors or whatever. Indigo, violet, yellow, orange, green, blue, yellow. Did I say red? I can't remember. You know, the colors. And of course, don't use any pliers and crimp down or else you're going to ruin the front edge of it. A little sweaty, but basically done. Now we only have 2 wires on our gauge. We've got our gauge zeroed, and now we can put on our boost hose, put it inside the cabin, maybe get an extra pod for it, or put it in the center console, wherever the hell you want. I guess last thing would do would be to check the brightness. Now I'm just using the little tester pack that came with the light. It comes with a button and it's nice and easy. Alright, so here is our gauge. Oh, that's fucking great. That's easy to see. I can probably see that in the daytime without issue, and of course I can definitely see that shit at nighttime. Maybe later on I'll set up a dual voltage to it so I can dim it, or an extra resistor or something, and then hook it up so that when the lights go on it dims. But that's everything, guys, so thank you very much for watching, and get your DIY on.